Our next speaker is Mike McManus. Mike is a Duke University graduate. He was one of Time Magazine's youngest correspondents in 1963. He worked for them for several years as a reporter for several other newspapers. He's a nationally syndicated columnist. And in 1991, he started the second syndicated column, Ethics and Religion, which has been going on for 11 years. He's the author of a number of books, including Marriage Savers, Helping Friends and Family Avoid Divorce, and also How to Cut America's Divorce Rate in Half. It's our privilege to introduce Mike McManus.
I'm afraid I'll block out everybody, these legs of mine. Well, it's a great joy to be here, an honor, and I so appreciate what John is doing. There is not another family policy council in the country which is pioneering in this dual left-hand, right-hand punch that you can see here. On the one hand, he's trying to strengthen the pastoral strategy, which has worked. We have helped create 223 community marriage policies around the country. There are Live the Life Ministries is one, but it's one of the two most outstanding in the country, and it has been extremely effective, cutting the divorce rate 30%. Now, the video you saw about the Oregon community, the ABC was impressed that the divorce rate came down 15% in 5 years. Well, that's just an average decline. On average, our divorce rates come down about 17 or 18% in just 7 years. And that's based on a study, which I can show any of you who would like to see it, that has evidence that this is not done by us, done by a group called the Institute for Research and Evaluation. And they found that the divorce rate in some cities actually came down 50%. Austin, Texas, in 5 years came down 50%. In Kansas City, Kansas, and Salem, Oregon, and Modesto, California, these are all cities that have cut the divorce rate by 50% or more. One city, 70%. A second impact of this kind of a strategy is that the number of marriages in a community rise. Since 1970, we have had a collapse of marriage in this country. There used to be, most people got married. Now, a substantial number do not. And the reason, in part, is that the number of people who are getting married in the right way is declining. There were 21 million never married Americans in 1970 and 60 million by 2006. However, cultural changes must be supported by policy changes. In addition to the great work of churches and CMPs, many states have begun to enact policies which create positive legal incentives to create and maintain stable marriages. It's important that both culture and policy work in cooperation to get the best results for protecting children and families they have come from. Some policies which could be enacted, and I'm talking about strategies which could become law, though we're talking here about the idea of these laws, they're not actual legislation at this point. One, establish waiting periods before divorce is granted. States vary widely on how long they require couples to wait before a divorce is granted. Some states like Florida, Mississippi, Wyoming, Nevada, Idaho, and Tennessee really don't have a legal minimum waiting period from the time that you file for divorce to the time that divorce can take place. And their divorce rates are among America's highest, nearly double that of other states such as Maryland, New York, Illinois, or Pennsylvania, which require 1 year of separation of the husband and wife before the divorce can take place. In my state of Maryland, it's 2 years if the divorce is contested. What that does is it encourages more couples to reconcile because the divorce isn't granted on the basis of a hot-headed decision by one party. The second answer is to increase premarital education from 4 hours to 8. Florida was one of the first states to pass a law giving a reduction in the marriage license if couples took at least 4 hours of marriage preparation. Well, frankly, 4 hours of marriage preparation isn't an awful lot. And what we do in our church and what we've trained 4,000 couples to do around the country is to meet 6 times for 2 to 3 hours per time. And if you put in more time, the couples are going to do a better job. Texas recently extended its 4 hours to 8 hours, and that might be something that Florida might want to consider. Minnesota requires 12 hours of marriage preparation and the taking of a premarital inventory. That's a questionnaire which has questions like, actually statements, which the man and woman react to. Sometimes my future spouse gives me a silent treatment when we get into arguments, or I think my future spouse spends money foolishly. The result in Minnesota is that the number of couples getting rigorous preparation has doubled from 22%, almost doubled, to 36%. Texas, I've already mentioned that, In our church, of 288 couples we prepared for marriage over a decade, 55 decided not to marry. So that's a good thing, because some of those people should not marry. But of those who did marry, there were only 7 divorces in a decade. 7 out of 230-some couples. A third answer is to require a premarital inventory in order to get the waiving of the license fee. An inventory, as I was mentioning earlier, asks couples to react to a series of one-sentence statements, 150 of them. Some relatives or friends have concerns about getting married. Well, if your friends and relatives think you have a problem here, then that's something that needs to be talked about. What is it they're concerned about? The inventory basically provides a bridge between the younger generation and the older generation, so we can tap the wisdom that's there in most of our churches and get it to the couples who are getting married. America has the world's highest divorce rate, as you've heard. Comparing every country in the world, where we have 1 divorce for every 2 marriages in this country since 1973 as a result of state legislatures adopting what's called no-fault divorce. Before no-fault divorce, if you wanted a divorce, you'd have to prove that your partner had committed adultery or been physically abusive or something like this. Changing the law to say no fault has to be proven, and one person can simply say, we have irreconcilable differences, then the divorce is always granted, even if the other partner thinks the differences are reconcilable. It doesn't make it, in 4 out of 5 cases, in fact, the other spouse disagrees and says this marriage could be saved, but they have no voice in whether it is to be saved. Florida is a state like this. 49 states have no-fault divorces, no-fault laws, and what I'm proposing is a modest reform that would modify no-fault divorce for couples with young children, that would require, in those cases, that the couple get help to try to save the marriage, and that they would not be able to get divorced unless both parties were to agree to it. Now, this would not, for couples without children, childless couples, the regular no-fault would still apply, and for couples whose children are over of adult age, this would not apply to them. So it is a modified no-fault proposal that really could cut the divorce rate in half. Both religious and legal experts have estimated that if this mutual consent or modified no-fault were in place, you would cut your divorce rate in half. That would be enormous. Right now, Florida is spending about $2 billion on the result of broken marriages or non-marriages. And if you cut, half of that is due to divorce. So that's $1 billion of the $2 billion. If you cut your divorce rate in half, this would save $500 million. So that's worth trying to do. I commend you what you're doing, and thank you for letting me be a part of it.